So welcome, and it's really a pleasure that you were good friend of Bangladeshi community. Remember, as I told you before, that you came here, have a meeting with the community, town hall meeting, work in 𝐎𝐿𝐢𝐚𝐥 area where the Bangladeshi business, and I remember the hundreds of people were behind of you. They sound slogans, took a picture. You came to Time Television studio and then have a meeting with the community leader as well. Thank you so much. So, what you are doing now? You are retired, but ambassador never retired.
Well, Abu, thank you very much. Thank you so much for inviting me to join this program tonight. First of all, I want to have a special welcome for Masood and Hassan. I'm very much looking forward to chatting and exchanging some thoughts and views later on in the program. And I have to say to Najmul, even though I don't speak Bangla, I found his news report very depressing because I could follow the topics. And I'm sure buried in there beyond my comprehension was something positive. But whew, these are challenging times, to put it diplomatically, for America.
Okay,
I have wonderful memories of those events that you referenced. Wow, reaching out to the Bangladeshi American community was always a priority for me. I was ambassador for 3 years or so, and 4 times each year I came back to the United States, and each time I would spend 5 or 6 days traveling all over America, reaching out to the Bangladeshi American community. So I was in Oregon, Washington, California, Texas, Hamtramck, Virginia, or Michigan, and every place in between, including, of course, New York City. I loved doing that, and so that was a very important part of my ambassadorship. I did that on the recommendation of my predecessor, Jim Moriarty, for which I'm extremely thankful. So, Bangladeshi American community, I hope we talk about that at some point in this discussion.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Their legacy is just so amazing.
Thank you so much. So let's talk about that. You were in Bangladesh about 3 years or 4 years?
I was there 3 years. I left Christmas of 2014.
2014, yes. So how you are missing Bangladesh?
Oh, everybody knows. I left my heart. In fact, I can show you where it's buried on the embassy grounds. I know exactly where I put it. And it's watered every day. I miss Bangladesh very much. I look forward to going back and staying long enough to go out, go back to some of the districts and visit some of the friends I have scattered around the country.
Yes, I saw the rickshaw.
I look forward to that.
I saw the rickshaw in your house. It's Bangladeshi rickshaw, and then some other.
Yeah, yes, you certainly did see that, Abu. I'm very proud. My 2 kids had that custom made for me by one of the Bangladeshi rickshaw artists. Oh, it's a pride and joy. I don't have the bicycle part on it anymore because my house isn't big enough for that. But I've kept the whole seating part and the umbrella that goes over it. It's everybody comes and looks at it and says, "What is this?" It's amazing.
All right, thank you so much.
Have you ever been to Bangladesh since you retired?
I haven't been back. I retired from the Foreign Service one time in December of 2014, and then I was rehired and spent over 4 years, I don't know how long, leading America's support for the fight against Boko Haram. You know, those terrorists in Nigeria, Northeast Nigeria. And then I retired again in the middle of 2019. So that was my second retirement. And basically, I've been traveling ever since. I got my bags all packed right now to take off again.
Yeah, sure. So let me talk about the, the current issue, because now everywhere, Bangladesh-U.S. relation and then the U.S. Decision about the visa restriction, everybody is thinking about, the Bangladesh government is kind of annoyed and hostile about the decision of the U.S. decision, and also the opposition. They are talking about that. What is the message? So if I ask you the first question, why? Because the election and all this thing, Bangladesh is an independent country, and Bangladesh could make any kind of decision for themselves, whatever they think good for them. But why the United States is so much interested about Bangladesh? What is the reason?
Oh, well, first of all, let me point out, as you've already noted, I am retired.
Yes.
So I am no longer an employee of the Department of State or the United States government.
Mm-hmm.
And so I speak as a person in my personal capacity.
Yes.
And so anything I say, those are strictly my own personal views.
Yes.
And they don't stand for anybody
as a former
else.
ambassador, yes.
Yeah, a former ambassador. And somebody, I tell you what, I mean, and many Bangladeshis know, how much I love Bangladesh and how much I love the people of that country. It was just, I lived there for a total of 6 years. And anyway, as I have already said, my heart was there. But you ask a fundamental question, and I'm going to go into a little bit of detail in responding to that, because I think a lot of people say, "Oh, Bangladesh, where's Bangladesh? Why do we care?" And I tell you what, if anybody says that to me, I give them a full salvo in my response, because Bangladesh matters. Bangladesh matters big time to America, to the subcontinent, and of course the people of Bangladesh. And first of all, I'm going to guess that few Americans know that Bangladesh is the 8th largest country in the world. Now just think about that.
Mm-hmm.
The 8th largest country in the world. And I would argue the 170 million people who live in Bangladesh are the best people I know. And I mean that from my heart. They are the hardest working, the most entrepreneurial, the most resilient people. And in 1971, there were very smart people calling Bangladesh a basket case. It was not, by the way, it wasn't Henry Kissinger. It was someone else. Alexis Johnson at the State Department, not Kissinger, said, "Oh, it's an international basket case." Well, what a basket case this has now lifted itself up. Despite all the natural challenges, hurricane or cyclones and everything else, and is now a lower middle income country. Okay, this is impossible. This can't happen. In fact, it did happen. And how did that happen? Why did that happen? It happened for one reason, and it's the amazing people of Bangladesh. And just to repeat myself, I don't know anybody who works harder. I don't know anyone who's more entrepreneurial, and I don't know anyone who's tougher and more resilient than the people of Bangladesh. So that's what they've done. That's part of the answer.
Okay, so
Bangladesh. Oh wait, you can't give me a question like that.
Sure. Go ahead.
I want to talk about the economic miracle of Bangladesh. I mean, who saw that coming? I want to talk about Bangladesh as a development success story. Like, I don't know any other. I've been in this business 38 years. I don't know any place in the world that can match Bangladesh. And look at how maternal mortality has been slashed, child under 5 mortality slashed, the defeat of the respiratory diseases, the diarrheal diseases, malaria, and how family planning has come. We take all these things for granted. Don't take them for granted. These are amazing accomplishments. And all of this, and not to mention the Rohingya, which of course is the world's largest refugee issue that Bangladesh is in the forefront fighting. These are all the reasons. You asked me a question. Why does the United States care? I'm telling you why they care. These are the reasons. Because this country is amazing. This country matters.
Okay, so what is the visa restriction, visa sanction? Why the visa sanction happened? Any idea? What is the message of the visa sanction?
Well, as an outsider, and I'm a private citizen. I try to follow developments in Bangladesh the best I can. But to me, the message of those visa restrictions, they were announced, I think it was May. It's very clear. Because Bangladesh matters, America cares. And these restrictions are actually, they're defined. They're restrictions on those Bangladeshi individuals and who are responsible for or complicit. I'm trying to remember how they said this. Responsible for or complicit in undermining the democratic election process. That's what it's all about. Because America's supports a Bangladesh that's peaceful, secure, prosperous, healthy, democratic. That Bangladesh, peaceful, secure, prosperous, healthy, democratic. That's good for American interests. That's good for South Asian interests, for global interests, and especially the interests of the people of Bangladesh. So to support the democratic process, this is my analysis. I just offered. These are the analysis of one person.
Right.
I believe that's why we've imposed this policy of visa restrictions, and why we're implementing it. It's focused. It's across the board. On former officials, current officials, ruling party members and leaders, opposition party members, law enforcement, judiciary, security services. That's where the focus is, and it's looking for those kinds of activities that impede the democratic process. Vote rigging, voter intimidation, or use of force to keep people from freely expressing their views, blocking media and civil society. Those are the kinds of activities that are looking for. So I think it's a good initiative. The response that came from the government, the response that came from the opposition, the response that came from civil society and friends of mine was positive. So I'm encouraged by that. Because doesn't everyone really, in their heart of hearts, support the democratic process for Bangladesh? I hope the answer is yes. I certainly do.
Okay, so this is being an ambassador, you understand the Bangladesh, you watch Bangladesh, and this is the first time in the history of Bangladesh that kind of sanction has been imposed, and many people, they are thinking that this is the interference of the sovereign countries, election or their own decision. What do you think? Because it never happened. Your sound is mute. Can you unmute your sound, please?
I'm sorry. It muted automatically somehow. So I apologize.
Yeah, no problem.
No, I don't see it as interference at all. It's friends helping friends. It's friends supporting friends. And like I said, the policy was welcomed by the government, by the opposition, civil society, and others. So I'm very encouraged about it. I remember reading comments by a government advisor and actually friend of mine, Salman Rahman, saying that he thought it was a good policy and that it wouldn't affect the relationship between the two countries. And I don't think it should affect the relationship between our countries. Well, just now the foreign minister was talking about the cordial relationship, and I support that characterization because I think it is a very cordial relationship, and because we care, we do things like this to support our friends.
Yeah, so
especially Bangladesh.
So do you think the U.S. is feeling something, there is a threat in Bangladesh to hold a free and fair election? That's what they impose the visa sanction?
I'm sorry, Abu, you cut out on me.
Yeah. Do you think the United States is feeling there is a threat to hold a free and fair election? That's what they put the sanction or visa restriction on the individuals?
Do I think the United States is afraid?
No, yes. No, do you think the United States is feeling something which is threat in Bangladesh to hold a free and fair election by the government, and that's what they put the sanction?
Well, I remember reading comments by various UN agencies following past elections, and those comments were that the elections came up short. So I think we want to be helpful in a proactive way, not afterwards, but ahead of time, in a proactive way, to encourage all participants to abide by the democratic process. And I underscore the phrase all participants.
Yeah, so the U.S. government always said, okay, the election has to be a participatory election. All parties has to participate. The environment has to be a democratic environment where everybody can participate. What do you think? What is the formula because the government is saying yes, we are asking everyone to participate in the election. So how it could be a participatory election? What do you think? What could be the way to be a participatory election?
Well, I would be the last one to chart a path for all the players, and there are very many players in the democratic process in Bangladesh, and it's incumbent upon them to come together and find an mutually agreed path that they can follow and that everyone can join the election process. I don't know what that path would be. I'm not being coy. I don't know. I would refuse to believe that there is no such path. No. If people want to find a way, I think they can find a way. And be creative might be something I've never seen before.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's not for me. It's for the people of Bangladesh. And so I think all the leaders of Bangladesh, civil society and across the political spectrum, and need to work together. A lot of very smart people in Bangladesh, as everybody on this discussion knows well. And I just cannot believe that they can't, when the will is there, that they can't find a way forward.
So what do you think? Because you are American, you were the ambassador of United States to Bangladesh, and you had a long career, diplomatic career. And then you know what is the consequence. If United States says something, and if a country doesn't comply with this, terms and conditions, then what do you think about the consequence? If the visa restriction or visa sanction doesn't work, then what kind of consequence could be?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to remember that a relationship has many variables. And we're talking about one variable right now. But there are many other variables. There are security variables, there are economic, human rights, development. There are so many different arenas. And those elements of the relationship, I would think, would pretty much go forward. In terms, I think you're asking me that if in fact the coming elections are not free and fair, then what?
Yeah, right.
I don't know. I think I would not be in a position to know that. I'm going to sort of guess people are not thinking too much about that, and they're thinking more about trying to support the process now before the election.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading in the paper that January 29 is sort of the date, and that's not that far away. So there's a lot of work that has to be done between now and then. So I think that's where the focus is.
Okay, so we have some guests, as I told you in the panel, Mr. Hassan Firdaus, Mr. Nazmul Hasan, Dr. Masadur Rahman, and Mr. 𝐎𝐿𝐲 𝐋𝐢𝐧𝐤𝐬 also join. So let's give the mic to Mr. Hassan Firdaus, who is one of the veterans, if you have any question.
Ambassador, thank you very much for joining us in today. I don't know if you know that just days after your departure, I wrote an article about you saying thank you, Ambassador Mozena, because the days before you left, there was so much bitter acrimony, so much accusations, so much bad blood I felt, especially from our politicians, that I was compelled to write that article. Anyway, let's not go back to that.
Yeah, well, thank you for the article. I don't know what bad blood you're talking about, but not from my side.
Yeah, I forwarded you the article. The article he wrote, I sent you the article.
Yeah.
I must remember how our senior politicians even compared you with, one of them called you 𝐎𝐿𝐲 Mozena. You remember that, of course, right?
There's an American expression, which I don't know if all your listeners know, water off a duck's back.
Yeah, of course.
You know what? At the time I was there were 165 million wonderful people, and my effort and my intent in visiting all 64 districts was to touch as many of those 165 million people as I could. And I really worked hard. Let me tell you, it's not that easy to do this, but I reached out, and I think that's my legacy, is touching those people, for which, by the way, I give great thanks to the government of Bangladesh, because they enabled me to do that. Laying on the security and facilitating meetings for me and all sorts of stuff. I'm very thankful for that. So the other stuff you're talking about, well, what do you say? I don't say anything.
Let's forget about that. But let's focus on Bangladesh. I have a few questions. As a former ambassador, you must understand, I don't. Abu asked a very important question. Why suddenly this extreme focus on Bangladesh and on its elections? One of the reasons perhaps is the strategic importance of Bangladesh. If you could explain to us what are the strategic importance that America feels towards Bangladesh. One of the dimensions I understand is terrorism, of course. Other is, of course, the growing rivalry with China. What role you see Bangladesh plays in the overall framework of the pivot to China in American foreign policy?
Well, I don't accept the premise of your question. And I had a front row seat for 6 years.
Okay.
And then, the notion that somehow all of a sudden America has discovered Bangladesh. No, I beg your pardon. In my 6 years, I can't tell you how many hours, hundreds of hours, I spent in meetings on Capitol Hill, at the White House, and throughout the State Department building and other agencies, including the Pentagon. I didn't have to sell Bangladesh. Bangladesh was already sold. I had to coordinate and make sure our policy was effective and coordinated. That I did. So America has not just discovered Bangladesh. I opened my remarks by saying why America matters. And it matters, and actually I could see Abu wanted me to shut up, so I stopped. But I could have kept going, and I could have talked about, in addition to the many things I did talk about, and I hope you didn't forget them, but I would add, it's important diplomatically. It's important in terms of international relationships. You mentioned China. It's important in that global relationship. You didn't mention India. It's important in that relationship. The whole South-South dialogue. Oh, there's so many ways. And then the Indo-Pacific. All these reasons. You're going to regret getting me started on this because I won't shut up but please don't say this just happened a week ago. No, I object to that because it didn't. And I went back 4 times a year. I said that already. I sat in the office of the Assistant Secretary of State, then Nisha Bishwal, sat there one-on-one, full hour. And what did we talk about? Nothing but Bangladesh, why it mattered, and how we can advance America's interests there and the interests of Bangladesh. That's what we did. And I had her full support. So you don't need the trumpets blaring when you've got your assistant secretary standing right behind you. Not to mention the higher echelons of the State Department. Not to mention the old the Eisenhower Executive Office building over at the White House. They're there, and they've been there.
Wonderful words, Ambassador, but what do you feel when the Prime Minister says, if America imposes sanctions on us, we may impose counter sanctions on America? How do you feel about that?
I think Bangladesh is a sovereign country. If that is in the interest of Bangladesh, so be it. Oh, my goodness, I think I have a hard enough time focusing on American policy. I'm not going to try to parse through Bangladeshi policy.
One last question from me before I give it to the panelists.
Sure.
On sanctions, I hope you understand that sanctions don't work. A good example is Nigeria. In Nigeria, you guys imposed sanctions before elections and repeated those sanctions after the elections. And the last election that was held in February and March was one of the worst in Nigeria's history. So sanctions don't work. And if it doesn't, why impose?
Our hope is that sanctions do make a difference. As you know, some sanctions were applied in Bangladesh a couple of years back against RAB. I have reason to think those sanctions made a difference. If you look at the conduct on the ground, the evidence would support that. I'm hopeful the visa restrictions will make a difference. I don't know. You're right. It's an unknown. But I don't ascribe nor do I agree with your notion sanctions never work. It's not true.
I just give an example from Nigeria. The best example, recent example. One more thing, in Nigeria...
but I gave you an example in Bangladesh, the RAB.
Very good. I'll not debate with you over this. One quick question. In Nigeria, one reason one demand that they had was release a list of people that you have imposed sanctions on. Who are the people that have been sanctioned? In the case of Nigeria, you did not. In the case of Bangladesh, you did not. Do you think you should release the names so that we know who are the people that are being refused visa?
That's not how the visa process works. So,
you want the sanctions to work, right? And the only way sanctions would work if we know who are the people that have been sanctioned.
Well, that's your view. I think
Nigerians too.
I think I would not discount visa restrictions from making a difference. I think there might be some people who might think twice about doing some of the activities I defined as subject to visa restriction. Maybe they think twice about it. But I don't agree with you to just broad brush say, well, they don't work. No.
Thank you. Mr. Nazmul Hasan, any question? You have to unmute your sound.
I have one question. United States imposed visa restrictions before the election. So why it is before the election, not after the election?
Well, I can only conjecture because I'm not part of the decision-making process anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I would pick up Hassan's point that they weren't terribly effective, visa restrictions I'm talking about, after elections. Mm-hmm. And so I think this is a different approach. And to me, I would say if you impose visa restrictions after the election, the horse is already out of the barn. It's a little late.
So what is the difference between visa restrictions and sanctions?
I just used the terminology that State Department uses, restriction. I don't know, I guess you want to call them sanctions, call them sanctions.
Thank you.
Dr. Masadur Rahman?
However, so what is the vision that you have, or USA might have, that you think might have, that how this interim government, if comes, how they are going to make a level ground, how they do the level ground for the election, which will be a free and fair election, how they are going to work? What is your expectation, or what is the US vision? You must have a vision. Even if you are not active there, you have to have a vision that how this is going to work. So what is your thought process, being an ambassador in that country, knowing the Bangladeshi people very well? What do you think?
Well, I don't think I spoke as clearly as I wanted to, because I thought I've already responded to that. It's not for me or the United States or other outside partners of Bangladesh to cook up a vision of how the Bangladeshi people sort out their democratic process. Luckily, we don't have to do that. The people who have to do it are there on the ground, and they come from across the political spectrum. They include civil society and other elements of the government and society, and they find a way that everybody can be confident that elections free and fair can happen. I don't know what that will look like. Now, maybe you have that in your mind. I don't know. You said something about a caretaker government. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. It's not for me to know that. It's for me. I think America's role, and I think the role of Friends of Bangladesh, and there are very many of them, is to support the process, the democratic process, the process by which all these players in Bangladesh come together and find a way forward. So I'm not avoiding your question. I'm not being coy. I think it'd be inappropriate if I had the solution in my head and then dumped it out here. I don't have the solution. That's for Bangladeshis to come up with. I will tell you one thing, and I know this from 6 years in that wonderful country, and you have many more decades than that, is the people of Bangladesh can sort this out. If anybody in the world can sort out tough stuff, it's the people of Bangladesh. I vote with them.
Thank you so much.
For my very good friend Tahir and Hassan Firdaus, I will, if you allow me, I'll just add a little thing, that USA, to my understanding, USA did not find Bangladesh all on a sudden. This was being sorted. Bangladesh was being looked up on a long time back, like in 2010, 11, somewhat like that. I don't exactly remember. But it was Patrick Leahy, Senator Patrick Leahy, who is the first, who is to be the chairman of the Judicial Committee. He first wrote, there was no talks in the international arena at the time, but he first wrote that Bangladesh is having lots of human abuse cases, and all this kind of thinking was already there. So they were already looking. I don't think that all on a sudden America found it. They had been watching Bangladesh, as you said, it's the 8th largest as per the as per the population, 8th largest country in the world. So it will have some attraction, and it was being washed upon. That's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, good point.
The human rights violation. Yeah, Ibrahim Siddiqui, anything you want to add?
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to say thank you, 𝐎𝐿 Mozena, for being here. Once I was a driver for you in New York City with Abu Tahir. But thank you very much. I got all the answers from you. But only one thing I want to add. I want to get a comment from you. Our government is saying, especially Foreign Minister last week personally told us, the government, two relationship between USA and Bangladesh is in the best position, is in a good way is going. But in my observation, being an American, being a Bangladeshi American, we think the relationship between two countries, USA and America, is getting worse. What's your comment, sir?
Well, I made the reference earlier that a vibrant relationship has many aspects. America is the #1 foreign investor in Bangladesh. America is the #1 single market for Bangladesh's export. We're the #2 destination for higher education. We're #1, #2 source of remittances. We're the second largest development partner. I don't know. It just goes on and on. Look at that relationship. How strong is that? And everything I said, those are things that we, America, we, Bangladesh, working together, the people of America, the people of Bangladesh, working together, have made happen. What is a strong relationship? That is a strong relationship.
Can I ask you one question?
Yeah, I just want to make one more point. Okay, every relationship, like every marriage, there will be issues where you don't necessarily see perfectly eye to eye. Okay, you identify those and you resolve to sort them out. Oh, sorry, Najmul.
Yes. Mike, one of the things I'm really interested to know, as a private citizen of the United States, what do you think the Bangladesh's relationship with China and Russia at the same time is a concern for the United States? Or can Bangladesh help United States bridging a good relationship with China as Pakistan did in early 70s?
First of all, as a private citizen, so I'm not in any of the councils of discussion, I think Bangladesh should pursue its interests as it deems best for the people of Bangladesh. It's not for me to say, oh, you do this, you do that, don't do that. I think when Bangladesh assesses how best to advance its interests, it will find natural comity with America. For the reasons I just listed off, our huge role in the economy of Bangladesh, our role as a partner of Bangladesh. And so I think Bangladeshi people, I think they're natural friends of Americans. And I can say that with great authority, because traveling all over that wonderful country, I met so many. And I didn't have people say, oh, we don't like you, we want Russia or something like that. Nobody ever said that to me. They want to know me and get to know me and build partnership and friendship. That's how I see it.
Okay, so there is a person who asked a question again. I mean, his name is A.S.M. Karim, and he asked, American sanction, how American sanction will help the democratic process to be strengthened in Bangladesh?
Well, I think the United States is trying to encourage the various players of the political, when you say democratic process, you're talking about institutions and people that make, so I'm talking about political parties, I'm talking about law enforcement, talking about judiciary, talking about government officials, all of these things. So we are trying to use the visa restrictions, for example, as a mechanism to encourage all these players to do their utmost to safeguard the democratic process. And someone earlier was talking about the improved situation with RAB. So that's an example of how that encouragement made a difference. And one hopes, it's not a guarantee, I'm not saying this is a guarantee, but one hopes that the visa restrictions will similarly motivate individuals to do the right thing to support democracy in Bangladesh.
Okay, so you were an ambassador in Bangladesh. Personally, you know our Prime Minister, 𝐎𝐿 𝐒𝐨𝐜𝐿. And when you are talking about the Bangladesh people, they are very friendly with American people as well. And when the Prime Minister said, after the visa restriction announced, that we don't have to cross the Atlantic, there is some other places we can go. How do you feel this? What is the message?
Oh, that's fine. And what do you say to that? It's fine.
What she said, fine, being a friend, when your friends say, okay, I don't have to come to your house, I can go somewhere else.
I mean, anybody can go anywhere they want. It's not for me to say, or you have to only go to America. You go where you want to go. I'm just talking about American visa restrictions. We don't do visa restrictions for other countries.
Mm-hmm.
Ambassador Mozena, one more thing. What is your definition of being a free and fair elections? As a private citizen of the United States, what do you think should be considered a free and fair election?
I think the people of Bangladesh will define that very clearly. I don't think there will be confusion about that.
All right, and then since you were there,
Mozena, the only problem is we are talking to a diplomat. So we never came out. You never come out from diplomacy. Thank you very much, but still we got the message.
I don't know if that's a compliment or an insult.
You are acting like a diplomat.
I have two quick questions.
I am Dr. Masood. I understood, I think, most of it.
Okay, wait.
As a former ambassador who has spent so many years in Bangladesh, you must come across this issue. The issue of America demanding a military base in Bangladesh. Just wait for my question. The Prime Minister herself said she was denied the position because she refused to give America St. Martin's Island, a small islet off 𝐎𝐿 and Cox's Bazar.
Right.
That's the Prime Minister. Was there ever a talk during your time of leasing St. Martin's to America? That's question number one. Question number two.
Let me answer that, because I'm not smart enough to remember other questions. I'll answer that one. That's not a new theory. That's an old theory about American naval base. It wasn't true then. It's not true now. And I've been to St. Martin's Island. Actually, I went out there to check. There's a sea turtle breeding ground there, which terribly interested me. If anyone is familiar with the Bay of Bengal, from a military perspective, it is of extremely limited value because it's so shallow. So American warships would never get anywhere close to St. Martin's Island. No, that's a canard. But I'm aware of that canard for a long time. I'm guessing for the next 100 years, people will be still talking about it. Okay. What do you say to that?
So there is no.
It doesn't make sense.
So there is no value of Bay of Bengal to the U.S. because of shallowness?
I'm sorry, you cut out.
No, there is no value of Bay of Bengal, like Bangla because of shallowness to U.S.?
Because of what?
Because of
shallowness of the bay. Shallowness.
Yeah.
What about it?
No, just you mentioned.
Because of non-navigation facilities of Bay of Bengal, or for that matter, of St. Martin's, it has no value to the USA?
No. We have a base in elsewhere down British territory. I have never heard anything about it. But I'll tell you what, I've heard 100 million Bangladeshis talk about it, which is okay if you want to.
The Prime Minister herself said that. The Prime Minister herself said that. That's a formal accusation she made. And can you just dismiss it just like offhandedly?
I will only say what I know.
Okay.
No, he said it's not true.
No interest in a naval base at St. Martin Island.
Got it. One last question from my side.
Sure.
Why this interest in Dr. Yunus that you meaning the Americans have, of the Grameen Bank? It seems that all the American politicians, former and present, want to stand by this man. Why? What is behind it? And how much true is it that you and you meaning the Americans endorse the idea of Yunus becoming the next president of Bangladesh through some mechanism? How much truth is in this?
Well, the advantage I have of having lived so many years in South Asia and so many years in Bangladesh is I'm so used to these conspiracies and these suggestions. I have the idea of, first of all, Muhammad Yunus is a world-renowned figure, a Nobel laureate. End of story. I have never heard of any notion of his being promoted for whatever. And why would an American ambassador be picking sides of who's going to be president or prime minister? I mean, no, it doesn't work that way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any other question? Just one question.
Just a note. I'm happy Jan Mozena here, and I'm very shameful that our politician lied to us about the St. Martin, and this is a straight answer we got from you. As an American, I believe that, and I feel ashamed that our politician is continuously lying to us about the St. Martin. Sorry about that. Thank you, Jan Mozena. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I think
the ambassador.
Hassan Bhai, wait, Hassan Bhai, thank you.
One last thing. One last thing is which my friend said, and you did not quite agree with that, but I agree with my friend Mr. Hassan that yes, you may have a policy of not telling the names or not exposing the names of the persons who are being sanctioned or having the visa restriction. That may be a policy, and that may have very good output, or that may have lots of advantages. But there is a little advantage in telling the names, if I may tell you. That is, if some people know who have a tendency to do the similar things, know that person are named to be under the visa restriction, then they get afraid that what are the jobs they have done, let me not do that. So there is a positive little point you might, USA might start to consider that a little bit. Not that you come out totally off your policy, but some people, like in RAB, you told the names. I mean, it's not that you do not tell names. So sometimes you tell names. If you tell names, as my friend have suggested, then that might help a little bit or that may be a teaching thing for the others who might be doing the same thing. They will avoid doing those things.
That's a view. I respect that view.
Thank you, Dan. Dan, there is a question. If the current government do the election without participation of main opposition BNP, you know BNP since you were the ambassador of Bangladesh, what will be American future role? What do you think about as being a former ambassador?
Oh, that's totally speculative. But I spoke to that before, that a partnership, and this is a very important point, and I hope it registers. And that is a partnership, a relationship has many, many facets, and those continue on. And then the best you can, and you sustain the relationship, you try to build the relationship, and you try to make things better the next go around. I mean, what's the alternative? You just pick up your marbles and go home and say, well, I'm not going to be here.
Okay, your friend Mary Zubaida, she asked, wasn't there the 7th fleet for one of the fleets in Borishal at some points?
Oh, you're going back to 1971. Ask yourself how close the 7th Fleet ever got to Bangladesh.
And then another
the answer is not very close.
Okay, another person asks, why America think 𝐎𝐻 is an obstruction to the free and fair election in Bangladesh?
Why does America think what?
Why America think 𝐻𝐻 is an obstruction to the free and fair election in Bangladesh? I think it's not a related question. It's over.
But Tahir, if I ask one question, do you think Ambassador Mozena, the United States could play a mediator role between parties of Bangladesh coming to election, joining the election?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wouldn't think so.
But
the thing about Bangladesh is like I said, I lived there 6 years, and it's the most sophisticated country in terms of political engagement. It's not like in the United States, to be perfectly frank. If you ask my mother a political question, do you know what she would say to you? I know it, because I heard her say this. She goes like this. I don't do politics. Okay, here's my question to you, Najmul. You line up the Bangladeshis who would tell you, I don't do politics. I'll tell you how many Bangladeshis would be in that line. 0. There's not one. Not one. You know that's true, Najmul. And so they don't need well-meaning outsiders to come in. Yeah, there might be other countries where maybe they don't have that sophistication on the political dynamic, but Bangladesh is the opposite.
All our politicians.
Okay, another question. Muhammad Chaudhry, he asked a question to you. My question is, do you think that the rules of democracy, including fundamental rights, have not been violated in Bangladesh?
I think I would urge the person that asked that question to Google UN human rights reports and answer his own question.
Dan, you are the ambassador, and he wants to know from your mouth, not the UN.
Well, I'm just deferring to the UN because I left 9 years ago. But anyone would and certainly Bangladeshis would be the first to acknowledge shortcomings in terms of human rights situation. In fact, if you asked me about the United States, I would take the rest of the time telling you about our shortcomings. So yes, there are shortcomings.
Your ambassador, I spent 30 years working for the UN, and here is my question to you.
Okay.
American democracy is in trouble. By your own admission, America faces a civil war between two opposing forces. What right do you have to advise other countries on how they must run? America cannot run itself. America cannot even hold elections, which is free and fair. If you listen to your former president, America didn't hold a free and fair election. What right do you have to give us advice?
Because we're a friend of Bangladesh.
But shouldn't you say
it's not a question of rights or whatever. First of all, I accept the premise of your question. because I believe in the United States, and I'm a citizen of the United States, I believe our democratic process is challenged. And I welcome our international partners, including Bangladesh, to help if they can find some way to be helpful. But the fact that we are challenged doesn't mean that therefore now we walk off the global stage. Absolutely not. It's more important than ever that we support our partners so that the world has as many thriving, vibrant democracies as possible. So I would take your question and draw exactly the opposite conclusion of it.
Thank you so much. We are out of time, but Hassan Bhai, any other question?
Very quickly, but shouldn't you first take your house in order first? Shouldn't you have your house in order first?
It's not an either or, Hassan. I'm not sure where you get this idea. I think America should focus on strengthening democracy domestically. I think America should focus on supporting democratic process in as many of our partners around the world as we can.
Thank you, Dan. There is a question from a viewer, ASM Kareem, and he is asking. Okay, we must ask him. Okay, concrete, like how American sanction will help the democratic process to be strengthened in Bangladesh. This is
I spoke to that before, Abu. I think the idea is that the visa restriction policy, for example, would encourage actors on the democratic stage in Bangladesh to think twice before they undertake activities that undercut democracy.
Okay, you are the ambassador and prime minister of Sheikh Hasina, and if there is a lot of people, they want to know, how was your relation with our prime minister, present prime minister Sheikh Hasina, and how do you evaluate her as a prime minister, as an individual?
I thank the prime minister of Bangladesh for enabling me to visit 64 districts of Bangladesh. I don't know how many of you have done that. It is extremely hard to do. I could not have done it without her support. In fact, she added to my visit to 𝐎𝐿𝐴 by sending a family member to show me all the historic sites of that district. And I'm very, very thankful for that. It's not for me to judge the leaders of other countries. I worked hard to build a relationship with 165 million people. That was my focus. I think I had some success. I worked hard to develop a strong, productive relationship with the government of Bangladesh and the civil society of Bangladesh. And I know that that was extremely successful. I saw it in the progress being made in so many ways on the environmental area, the development of saline-resistant seed varieties, all the health advances I talked about at the beginning of this presentation. That was ongoing partnership. I would sit down with the health minister, all these other ministers and senior leaders of the Bangladesh government, and we made those things possible. And I'm very proud of that.
Any crucial moment,
But just to finish my point, had the prime minister at any point wanted to turn that off, she'd just say, okay, finished. She never did that. And I'm thankful for that.
Any crucial moment with any government official during your tenure?
Any what?
Any crucial moment with any government official during your time?
Oh, I had wonderful relationships with health ministry and good relationship with the agriculture. The agriculture minister wasn't too crazy about me, but we set that aside because I'm a farmer myself. That's my background, and she was too, and so we worked together. Even though on her list of people she liked, I would be at the bottom.
All right, and then last question. Peter Hess, the present ambassador in Bangladesh, and off and on we found there is a kind of hostile relation with the officials. Being a former ambassador, the relation with, and then as you know, they cut the security force and other facility of the ambassador. What is your comment on it?
I think Peter Haas is a wonderful ambassador. And I know he's working hard to advance the interests of the United States of America. I know he's working hard to promote the well-being of the people of Bangladesh. And I applaud him.
And as my question was, the government cut his security. Government is his relation and his movement has been, criticized by the government as well. The foreign minister and the other government high official, including the prime minister, though she don't mention the name. What is your comment on it?
Well, I really don't have a comment on that. I don't know the ins and outs of that.
All right, Dan, thank you so much. It is absolutely a friendly conversation, and being a former ambassador,
So thank you very much. It's I think we lost Masood, but Hassan's still here. Ibrahim is here, and Najmul. Thank you. Thank you, Abu.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you.
Yeah.
I really sincerely thank you for your frankness and your service in Bangladesh. I mean, it was a wonderful time. People remember you very fondly. I must tell you that. People remember you very fondly.
I'm happy because I certainly remember them equally fondly. No place touched me the way Bangladesh did.
Thank you.
No place.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you, Abu. Thank you for making this happen. Oh, Ibrahim, you're back.
Good
Thank you
night.
so much. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.